In this lecture, I am going to create add like and remove like API endpoint for a blog in node.js. We need a mongoose collection to store like data for each blog. So I'll create a new model file inside our models folder for our blog likes collection, and the file name will be bloglike.model.js. And then I'll copy the code from our blog comment.model.js file and I'll paste that inside our bloglike.model.js file, and inside our blog likes collection there will be blog underscore id field of type mongoose schema type subject id, and this will be the reference to the underscore id field of our blogs collection. And there will be user underscore id field of type mongoose schema type subject id, and this will be the reference to the underscore id field of our users collection. And then I'm creating the model with the help of mongoose model method, and we need to provide the model name inside this mongoose model first parameter, and the model name will be blog like, and in the second parameter we need to provide the schema. Then I'll export this model from this file. Now let's open our blog.out.js file to add a new route for our add like and remove like functionalities for the blog, and I'll create a single API endpoint to add like and remove the like for a blog, and route method will be post, and URL will be our base URL slash blog slash blog id as a route parameter slash toggle hyphen like. And this API endpoint should be protected, that's why I'm adding auth middleware so that an user need to provide API token through authorization header to like a blog, and it will execute blog controllers toggle underscore like method. Now let's open our blog.controller.js file, and then let's export a method called toggle underscore like. And then let's get request and response as a parameter to this method. Now I will get the blog ID which is present inside our request URL as a route parameter, and I will get that with the help of request param subject, and the parameter name is blog underscore id, and I will store that blog id to a variable called blog underscore id. And then I will check is this blog id a valid mongoose id or not, and we can check that with the help of mongoose types object id is valid method. So let's copy this code from here and let's paste this inside our toggle underscore like method, and if this blog id is not a valid mongoose id, then I will return a JSON response with message invalid blog id. And if this blog id is a valid mongoose id, then I will find the blog with this id from our blogs collection with the help of blog models find one method. And inside this find one method we need to provide the condition inside an object, so I'll provide underscore id is equal to this blog id, and this will return as a promise, so we can use async await or we can use callback method to get the data. I'm using callback method to get the data, and we'll get blog data inside this callback method. And if any error occurs, then we'll get the error data inside this catch block, and if any error occurs, then I'll return a JSON response with error data from this catch block. And inside this callback method I will check if no block found, then I'll return a JSON response with message no block found. And if any block found, then I will check is this blog already liked by current user or not. So I'll store currently authenticated user data to a variable called current underscore user, and we can get currently authenticated user data from request user key. Because this API endpoint is protected, so that an user need to provide API token through authorization header, then only we can get currently authenticated user data from this request user key. Now I'll check is this blog already liked by current user or not, and we can check that with the help of blog like model. So let's import our blog like model inside our blog controller. And the model file name is bloglike.model.js. we do not need to provide .js at the end. Now I'm gonna search our blog likes collection, and I can search the blog likes collection with the help of blog models find one method. And inside this find one method I'll provide the condition inside an object, and the first condition will be blog underscore id, and we need to provide the blog id as a value. This will be the blog id, and I'll add another condition. This will be user underscore id, and this will be current user dot underscore id, and this will return as a promise So we can use async card or you can use callback method to get the data. I'm using callback method to get the data, and we'll get like data inside this callback method. And if any error occurs, then we'll get the error data inside this catch block. And if any error occurs, then I'll return a JSON response with error data from this catch block. And inside this callback method, I'll check if no like data found. That means this block is not liked by currently authenticated user. Then what I'll do, I'll add a new record inside our blog-like collection, and I'll add the data with the help of blog-like model. So first of all, let's get a new document for our like data. And we can create the document with the help of blog-like model. And I'm gonna store blog ID and user ID to our blog-like collection. And then we can store the data to our blog-like collection with the help of save method, and this will return as a promise. So I'm using await here. Because we are using await here, I need to add async before this callback method. Also let's add async before this callback method. Also let's add async before this main function. And this will store the data to our blog-like collection. And I'll store newly added like data to a variable called like data. And after storing the like data to our blog-like collection, I'm gonna update our blog object. So let's open our blog model. Similarly, what we did for our blog's comments, I'll add a new field inside our blog models, and this time the field name will be blog likes. And this will be an array, and we're going to push like ID, and the type of our like ID will be Mongo schema types object ID, and this will be the reference to the underscore ID field of our blog like model. Now I'm gonna update our blog data, and we can update our blog data with the help of blog model update one method. And inside this update one method, we need to provide the condition in the first parameter, and the condition will be underscore ID is equal to this blog ID, because we are going to update the block of this ID. And in the second parameter, we need to provide the data, whatever the data we are going to update for the blog. And I'm going to push newly created like ID to our blog models blog underscore likes array. So let's provide newly created like ID here, and this will return as a promise. So I'll use await here, and after creating the new like data and updating our blog data, I'll return a JSON response with message like successfully added. So the message will be like successfully added, and the status code will be 200. Sorry. And from this else block, that means if this blog already liked by current user, then I'll remove the like data from our blog list collection, and I'll also update our blog data. So first of all, let's remove the like data from our blog list collection with the help of blog like models delete one method. So we can delete the like data from our blog likes collection with the help of blog like model delete one method. And inside this delete one method, you need to provide the condition inside an object. So I'm gonna provide underscore ID is equal to the like ID, which you will get from this like data. So I'll provide blog like dot underscore ID, and this will return as a promise. So I'll use await here, So this will remove the like data from our blog likes collection with this like ID, and after removing the like data, I'm gonna update our blog data, and we can update our blog data with the help of blog models update one method, and we're going to update the blog of a blog ID, and we need to provide the blog ID here. So we'll get the blog ID from this like object. So I'll provide blog like dot blog underscore ID. Okay, and this time instead of push I'll use pull, because I'm going to remove the like ID from our blog models blog underscore likes array, and we're going to provide the like ID here, which we will get from this blog like object, and this will also return us promise, so we need to use await here. And after removing the like data and updating our blog data, we're going to return a JSON response with message like successfully removed. And I'm gonna put all of this code inside a try catch block so that we can handle the error. So I'll open a try block here. So let's open a try block, and if any error occurs inside this try block, we'll get the error inside this catch block. And if any error occurs, then I'll return a JSON response with message, whatever the message we'll get from this error object. And then I'll cut these lines of code from here and I'll paste inside this try block. Now it's time to test our add like and remove like API endpoint from Postman. Let's open Postman, and then let's open a new tab, and then let's provide the request URL, which will be our base URL /blog/blog ID as a route parameter. Let's take an ID from our getBlocks API endpoint. Suppose we are going to like this blog, so we need to provide the ID of this blog here as a route parameter, and then the URL will be toggle-like, and the route method will be post. Let's execute this endpoint. You see we are getting a JSON response with message please login to continue, because we need to provide API token through authorization header. So we can generate API token with the help of login API. I am generating API token for this user. Now let's copy the token from here and paste it inside this authorization value. Execute this endpoint now. You see now we are getting a JSON response with message like successfully added. Now if I check our database, we will have a new collection inside our database. You see we are getting a new collection called blog likes, and if I open this collection, you see we have a new record. So we successfully stored the like data inside our blog likes collection with this blog ID. Now if I open our blogs collection and if I check the last blog, you see we also successfully stored newly added like ID to our blog underscore likes array. And if I execute this endpoint again, now we are getting JSON response with message like successfully removed. And if I refresh our blogs collection, you see right now we don't have any like ID inside our blog likes collection, I mean blog likes array, because we successfully removed the like ID from our blog likes collection. Okay, so our add like and remove like API endpoint is successfully working. In the next lecture, I am going to load total likes count for each blog, and I'm going to add like count to a short functionalities to our getBlocks API endpoint. So stay connected.